My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
WABC New York and 107.1 WLIR Hampton Bays. It's the 77 WABC News Hour. Sponsored by Secure Cash, LLC. Talking the news with Noam Laden. All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now, Talking the news with Noam on 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me, 5 o'clock. Good morning. It is Thursday, March 13th. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center, a mix of sun and clouds today. The high going to be 49. Tonight and overnight, partly cloudy, low 39. And then Friday, mostly sunny, high 56. If you are walking out the door with us right now, 39, partly cloudy in Nyack up in Rockland County. It's 38 and clear in Freehold over in New Jersey. And it's 39 and clear right outside our Midtown studios.
The top 5 at 5.
A Connecticut mom is accused of keeping her son trapped in his room for 20 years. Mahmoud Khalil still fighting the move to send him back to Syria. Tom Homan takes a tour of Albany. Why are people honking less in Midtown Manhattan? And a New Jersey principal is in hot water for dressing up as President Trump. All right, let's get into it at 5:01. Up in Connecticut, a Waterbury woman accused of holding her stepson captive for 20 years, providing little water and food over those years. The man, he's actually now 32 years old. When they were able to rescue him after he was able to set his house on fire, he weighed just 68 pounds. The investigation started last month after this fire, after firefighters found him. Now we're getting more details from the state prosecutor who called the case something out of a horror movie.
He's been locked in that room since he was 11. He was given 2 cups of water per day. He'd been locked in there since 4th grade.
The woman accused of keeping him in his bedroom all these years, 56-year-old Kimberly Sullivan. This is a story. It's really hard to get your head around that. They were able to keep the secret from the neighbors that the kid may have been held in his room since he was 11 years old. His stepson remained in the house until he was able to somehow start this fire. And when he did about 2 weeks ago, firefighters show up, and that's when they found him. And they think that he was held captive in this room since he was 11. There was some sort of bolt on the door. At some point, he had tried to sneak out to get food when they weren't feeding him, and that's when they locked him in the room. Here's more from the prosecutor up in Connecticut.
He lit that fire knowing he could very well die, but he'd been locked in that room for 20 years, and for 20 years he'd been trying to get out of that room. He'd be let out less than 2 hours a day for chores under the supervision of this defendant. He'd then be locked back in that room. This victim, 31 years old, was 5'9", 68 pounds. He had a body mass index of 11%. Under 13% is life-threatening. He was in the stages of dying.
It's amazing that he's still alive today. And you heard that, right? 5'9", 68 pounds when they found him. He told police he was hungry every single day of his life. He had not received medical or dental care during the last 25 years or so. Police obtaining a warrant to get more details on this. They searched through the house. The woman who's being charged is 56-year-old Kimberly Sullivan. She is pinning the blame on her husband who recently passed away. Here's her lawyer.
He was not locked in a room. She did not restrain him in any way. She provided food. She provided shelter. She is blown away by these allegations. He was the biological father. He's the one that dictated how his son would be raised. We think as the evidence comes out, you will see that she's not She's not the villain she's being made out to be.
But Sullivan is accused of keeping her stepson locked in this 8 by 9 foot room. No heat, no air conditioning since he was in 4th grade. The warrant says there was a slide bolt lock on the outside of the frame, and it was used to lock the door from the outside, which made it impossible for him to ever get out. Oh, thank God he's out now. Now she's being held on $300,000 bond. Her next court date is March 26. 504, the activists who led those pro-Palestinian protests at Columbia University going to remain detained in a jail cell in Louisiana following a brief court hearing here in Lower Manhattan yesterday. Judge Jesse Furman says he would grant a request by Mahmoud Khalil's lawyers, allowing them to have privileged phone calls with Khalil at least twice a day. Khalil, arrested by federal immigration authorities over the weekend at Columbia University. His lawyers say they've been unable to talk to him. The lawyer says they're going to meet again to try to sort this all out as the White House wants him gone from the U.S. They say he is handing out pro-Hamas leaflets on the campus of Columbia University during those protests last year that were inciting violence. Khalil's lawyer speaking out after the court case, saying that the court date yesterday, saying this is a freedom of speech issue.
Mr. Khalil's detention has nothing to do with security. It is only about repression. The United States government has taken the position that it can arrest, detain, and seek to deport a lawful permanent resident exclusively because of his peaceful, constitutionally protected activism. In this case, activism in support of Palestinian human rights.
But the White House says that's nonsense. They say he's a green card holder who should be following the rules, and that the leaflets he was handing out, the pro-Hamas ones, were just awful.
Khalil was an individual who was given the privilege of coming to this country to study at one of our nation's finest universities and colleges. And he took advantage of that opportunity, of that privilege, by siding with terrorists.
Yeah, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio says he's looked at this case as well, and he says it's not one of First Amendment rights.
This is not about free speech. This is about people that don't have a right to be in the United States to begin with.
Yeah, so he says he should be stripped of that green card, sent back into Syria.
If you told us that's what you intended to do when you came to America, we would have never let you in. And if you do it once you get in, we're going to revoke it and kick you out.
All right. So this court date has been pushed off. Of course, when we know more details on this case, we'll pass them on to you. WABC News Time 5:09. We were talking about that Mahmoud Khalil case as the White House tries to get him sent home to Syria for passing out those pro-Hamas leaflets on the Columbia University campus last year and for some of his other activism up on the Upper West Side. Meanwhile, the American Islamic Relations Council is saying that discrimination against Muslims who voice their support for Palestine has gone up.
Dozens of doctors have lost their jobs. Attorneys have lost their jobs in law firms. Students have been expelled not because of what they have done, because of what their mother have posted online.
So he says those who voice support for the people of Gaza face accusations, false accusations, he says, of anti-Semitism.
A different type of Islamophobia or a different type of civil rights violation based not on your appearance or your religious belief, but instead on your political thoughts. What we're aspiring to do is educate people so that they feel free to criticize the state of Israel when they commit war crimes, or they can support the right of the people of Palestine to have their own state, because that's an inalienable right.
WABC News Time 5:10. Let's bring it back here to New York. An investigation underway after a young boy and his mother discovered dead in their Brooklyn apartment. Officers were responding to this home in Brownsville. It was about 2 o'clock. They got a call of a report of a foul odor coming from inside that apartment. When the officers arrived, they broke in through the front door, discovered 2 people dead inside. The victims, a 7-year-old boy and his 33-year-old mother, found dead inside the bedroom inside the apartment. There was no sign of trauma, no signs of forced entry, so police are not exactly sure what took place here. But neighbors say this mom was a recluse, that you didn't really see her out and about too often.
She never came out. She don't open the door to nobody. Never opened the door for nobody. Even if she knocked, she never opened. I mean, everybody's shocked in the building from all this. God knows whatever's going to happen, or whatever happens in there.
Both deaths remain under investigation as the medical examiner's office works to determine their cause of death. Out on Long Island, accused Gilgo Beach serial killer Rex Heuermann going to be due back in court later this month as they sort out what DNA from this case will be able to be used during the trial.
A judge set the date for an evidence hearing for March 28th. That's when prosecutors are expected to argue why they should be able to use the DNA they claim links the Massapequa Park resident and New York City architect to several murders. Both sides are expected to bring in several experts for the hearing that could last weeks or even months. The hearing comes after authorities revealed Heuermann spent 4 years working at Jones Beach in the 80s, allowing him to get familiar with the Ocean Parkway, the site where several bodies were found. I'm Liz Radabali for 77 WABC News.
Those poor astronauts on the International Space Station, Butch Wilmore, and Sonny Williams, they've been up there since last spring when they were supposed to go up for what was essentially an 8-day visit to the International Space Station, but their rocket malfunctioning in a way where they didn't feel safe to bring them back home. So there is supposed to be a SpaceX rocket that was going to be launched last night that was going to go up to get them. It was going to bring 4 new, fresh astronauts to the International Space Station and then take Butch and Sonny back home. But there was an issue with the rocket, and the launch was called off. It was due to a hydraulic system issue with what they called a ground support clamp arm for this Falcon 9 rocket. Well, I don't totally understand what that means. It was enough for them to scrap the launch last night. So now they're saying they're targeting a launch of no earlier than 7:03 p.m. on Friday night. You got to imagine Butch and Sonny, they can't wait for this rocket to get there. President Trump talking about this yesterday.
Because, they've been left up there. I hope they like each other, but maybe they'll love each other. I don't know.
Well, they might love each other after all this time together.
We have 2 people up there that Biden and Kamala left up there, and he knows it very well. I said, "Are you equipped to get him?" He said, "Yeah, he's got a Starship, and they're preparing it right now." And
yeah, so it looks like this mission will take place on Friday now. 5:13, a new report shows inflation is cooling. Correspondent Mitch McCann has the details.
Inflation slowed in February for the first time since September, despite the implementation of widespread tariffs by the Trump administration. The Consumer Price Index increased by 2.8% from a year ago, down from 3% in January.
Core CPI, which strips out volatile food and energy costs, rose 3.1%. That's down from 3.3% the previous month. The report follows what has been a major sell-off on Wall Street this week, linked to the uncertainty over those tariffs.
The figures show that prices rose for a range of products and services, including auto insurance, used cars, fuel oil, and eggs, which were up 15.2% due to the avian flu outbreak.
I love this guy because he can't say February, and apparently he calls it February. Mitch, what is his name? Mitch McCann. And he calls, well, here he goes.
15.2% due to the avian flu outbreak, which were up 15.2%.
Where was the word that he said wrong?
U.S. stocks.
All right, let's try this again because he said something funny again.
The figures show that prices rose for a range of products and services, including auto insurance, used cars, fuel oil, and eggs.
Eggs, there we go. That's the one I was looking for. Eggs in February.
Fuel oil and eggs, which were up 15.2% due to the avian flu outbreak.
We get the idea. The Trump administration applauding this report showing inflation cooling, the Consumer Price Index. Here was economic advisor, the White House economic advisor, Kevin Hassett yesterday.
I'll give you an expectation that GDP growth is going to be 2.5% in the first quarter at least.
Yeah, okay. We're only rooting for the economy to get better because it's been awfully tough for people going to, even just to the grocery store. 5:15. Let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk. Happy Friday Eve. Good morning, Justin Alec.
Happy Friday Eve. Good morning to you, Noam Layden. Start here with the NBA in Portland. Mikal Bridges hit a 25-foot three-pointer at the buzzer to give the Knicks a 114-113 overtime win over the Trail Blazers. Bridges finished with 33 points, and OG Anunoby had 23 as New York won its second in a row and improved to 2-2 on its 5-game West Coast trip with 1 game remaining. Karl Anthony Towns shot 8 of 12 from the field, including 2 three-pointers late in regulation to finish at 21 points for the Knicks, with Jalen Brunson expected to miss at least 2 weeks with a right ankle sprain. New York's immediate future, it looked bleak when he went down, but the win last night helps the team salvage some hope and pull within 4.5 games of the Celtics in the Atlantic Division. Up next for the Knicks, they'll conclude a 5-game West Coast trip at Golden State on Saturday. As for the Brooklyn Nets, they return to action in Chicago tonight, getting set for an 8 p.m. tip-off against the Bulls. After a quiet night on the ice locally, the Rangers and the Devils will both be skating tonight in Minnesota. The Rangers will drop an 8 p.m. puck against the Wild after the Devs get underway in Jersey at 7:30 p.m. against the visiting Edmonton Oilers. And checking in on the local collegiate hardwood as well here, St. John's will take on Butler in the quarterfinals of the Big East tournament today at noon. The Red Storm's record in Big East play is 18-2 on the year. The teams meet for the third time this season. St. John's won 76-70 in the last matchup on February 27th. The winner will meet either Xavier or Marquette in the Big East semifinals come Friday. That Xavier-Marquette quarterfinals tip-off is this afternoon at 2:30. That's your Sports Gnome, and I'm Justin Ellick on 77 WABC.
Hey, business owners, make your cash secure again with Secure Cash LLC. Transporting your business's cash safely in armored trucks. SecureCashLLC.com.
WABC News Time 5:20. President Trump says the European Union has treated the U.S. badly for years. He commented on the new tariffs that were announced by the EU yesterday while meeting with Ireland's Prime Minister at the Oval Office yesterday.
The EU was set up in order to take advantage of the United States.
So the president says the U.S. will do reciprocal tariffs. Trump says the economy doing well right now because he won the election.
They should have done just what they did, but the United States shouldn't have let it happen. We had stupid leaders. We had leaders that didn't have a clue. I'd like to see the United States not have been so stupid for so many years, not just with Ireland, with everybody.
Yeah. Also, while he was meeting with the Prime Minister of Ireland yesterday, he had heard that Rosie O'Donnell, maybe you missed this, she's moved to Ireland and she's, I guess, seeking out Irish citizenship, all because Donald Trump won the White House. So he wanted to talk the president to the prime minister about whether he should let Rosie O'Donnell into Ireland. The two hate each other, and they've hated each other for years.
You know who she is?
Yeah. I'm joking.
You better off not knowing.
Why in the world would you let Rosie O'Donnell move to Ireland?
Yeah, okay, so he was asking him that question yesterday. The comedian had posted a TikTok video earlier this week claiming she and her 12-year-old daughter, now living in Ireland, and that she was in the process of getting Irish citizenship, that a feud between Rosie and President Donald Trump goes back decades. Meanwhile, some of the complaints about these tariffs we're hearing from California breweries are complaining. So are beer brewers in other parts of the country because they say this 25% tax on Canadian steel and aluminum could raise prices for beer and related products, which means they may have to raise the price of things like a six-pack, which that'll get a lot of Americans upset.
For us as a small company, these tariffs are terrifying in many ways.
That's Blaine Landberg, the owner of Calicraft Brewing. That's in Walnut Creek, California. He says his company relies on aluminum cans from Canada, and he expects the tariff to raise the cost for him. So he says he's going to have to pass on that cost to customers. While we were down at the White House, President Trump claiming there have been more deaths in the Russia-Ukraine war that have been reported. He once again said the war never would have started if he were president the last 4 years. And he says that Russia fears him. That's why they never would have gone into Ukraine.
They never took anything from me. They took them from Obama and Bush, and they took it from Sleepy Joe Biden. With Biden, they wanted to take the whole country.
Now, he's celebrating the fact that Ukraine has agreed to a temporary ceasefire. It hasn't been backed by Russia, but he thinks he can convince Russia to come to the ceasefire treaty table.
I can do things financially that would be very bad for Russia. I don't want to do that because I want to get peace. I want to see peace. And we're getting close to maybe getting something done.
Meanwhile, U.S. armed deliveries to Ukraine have resumed after Ukrainian officials tentatively signed off on that 30-day U.S. ceasefire proposal. Correspondent Richard Engel reports from eastern Ukraine. He says, we still haven't really heard from Russian President Vladimir Putin either way on this treaty idea.
So far, the Kremlin has said that Putin will not respond to this ceasefire initiative until Russia hears more from the Americans. President Trump is expected to speak with President Putin soon.
WABC News Time 5:23. Let's go down to Texas. A pair of shuttered immigration detention centers in Texas, including one in South Texas, have been reopened over the last couple of weeks. Experts say this is a sign that the former policy of detaining whole families will come back now.
These two facilities being brought back online for family detention would, at least for now, would be the only two facilities.
George Fishman with the Center for Immigration Studies says the facility, which is in Dilley, Texas, is designed to hold thousands of people, and he predicts it'll be used as a staging ground for deportations by the White House.
Even if you now have family detention centers available, the children, the minors, can't be detained for more than 20 days.
It was previously closed when the Biden administration ended family detention. 5:24, New Hampshire Democratic Senator Jeanne Shaheen, I should say, will not seek re-election in 2026. She made the announcement yesterday.
I ran for public office to make a difference for the people of New Hampshire. That purpose has never and will never change.
So this sets the stage for a competitive race in New Hampshire. New Hampshire has gone more blue than red as of late, but Republicans maybe think they could pull this off, get a Republican to replace her.
After careful consideration, I'm announcing that I have made the difficult decision not to seek re-election to the Senate in 2026. It's just time.
She served in the Senate since 2009. 3 people have been charged now with fraud and filing claims for federal disaster relief funds from the California wildfires. The acting U.S. Attorney, Joseph McNally, says the defendants were allegedly paid tens of thousands of dollars in benefits to which they were never entitled to. In fact, some of these people filing for these claims, they didn't even live in California.
In one case, a Texas woman sought disaster assistance claiming her residence in Pasadena was damaged. She was paid nearly $30,000, even though she had no connection to that residence, nor did she ever live in California.
Now, some of these people who were busted have done this before. They've gotten disaster aid from other disasters. They know how to work the system, which makes you think there's a lot of people getting away with this. These people just got caught.
That included false claims to damages to property that the defendants did not own, rent, or live in, as well as false claims of damage to property that was not affected by the wildfires.
Now, if they are convicted as charged, each defendant busted in this latest case could get about 30 years in federal prison. Southwest Airlines' decision to start charging for checked bags is being met with ridicule across social media. A bunch of people who say, look, I took Southwest because it was cheaper than the other airlines, say now with this baggage charge, and they're getting rid of that, you can sit wherever you want. They're now going to ticket passengers with a seat. They say that's enough to start looking at other airlines, that they may stop taking Southwest.
This costs more, and that costs more, and that costs more. And now this is just one more thing on a family. They haven't been a low-cost carrier for a long time. Southwest has just been easy because you don't have to worry about paying for bags. If you buy their business fare, then you don't have to pay for bags. And that's just like every other legacy carrier.
Yes, so this is the deal, is they'll start charging for bags like other airlines. I guess Southwest said some of this is just about, raising some funds by charging for bags. But some of it was that people knew Southwest did not charge for bags, so they'd bring on their, everything they owned. 4 or 5 suitcases. It costs the airline, full fuel. It costs the airline people to, service those planes and put those bags on the airplanes themselves. And they say, enough, we're going to charge for it. So it's going to be like everybody else, starting at $25, $35 a bag. The breakout star of the hit Apple TV show Severance is apparently a building in New Jersey.
The building and home
Holmdel, New Jersey, is as much a star of the hit streaming series as it stars Adam Scott and Patricia Arquette. The building was spotted by the show's director, Ben Stiller, and his director of photography while searching online. The building, which is the setting for Lumen Industries, in real life is now a mixed-use complex now called Bell Works. It was once the headquarters for Bell Telephone Laboratories, the research arm of AT&T. Now it's a tourist destination and has tons of photos on Instagram and TikTok. Lisa G. for 77 WABC News.
Stonehenge, where the demons dwell, where the banshees
A release date's been announced for the sequel to what's arguably the most famous rock mockumentary in history, Spinal Tap 2. The End Continues is set to arrive in theaters on September 12th. A 30-second clip shows instruments being plugged into amps, including an amp whose volume control goes beyond 11 to infinity. The original is so great. It's 1984 is when the original came out. Michael McKean, Christopher Guest, Harry Shearer, they're going to reprise their roles as members, of course, of the fictitious band, of course, called Spinal Tap. Today's Grateful Dead news is brought to you by the number 60. Enjoy the Ride is the name of the limited edition 60 CD box set to celebrate the Grateful Dead's 60th anniversary. Why you would want 60 CDs of the Grateful Dead is beyond me. I think just a few is probably enough. The collection features more than 60 hours of previously unreleased concert tracks from shows between 1969 and 1994. It includes some big shows at Madison Square Garden, Red Rocks Amphitheater, the Fillmore West and Fillmore East. If you're not a Deadhead or never went to a Grateful Dead concert over the years, the Grateful Dead allowed their fans to tape their shows. There was no problem. There was like microphones everywhere in the crowd. So some of that is what you'll hear on this 60 CD set, which I think might work better as a feature to torture prisoners than it would be to entertain.
Talk Radio 77 WABC. It's the 77 WABC News Hour. Sponsored by Secure Cash, LLC. Talking the news with Noam Laden. All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now, Talking the News with Noam on 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me. Good morning. It is Thursday, March 13th. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center. A mix of sun and clouds. Today, not as warm as it has been. The high 49. Tonight and overnight, partly cloudy, low 39. And then Friday, mostly sunny, high 56. If you're walking out the door with us right now, so happy you are. It's 39 and partly cloudy in Nyack up in Rockland County. It's 38 and clear in Freehold over in New Jersey. And it's 40 and partly cloudy in Midtown. We're just getting this piece of news into the WABC News Center. One woman killed, another critically injured in a fire on the Upper West Side early this morning. It broke out about 3:13 a.m. in an apartment on the 14th floor of a high-rise at 73rd and between Amsterdam and Columbus. 20 fire units responding to this, 78 firefighters in all. The 41-year-old woman is believed to have worked in the apartment as a home health aide. She's the one that died at the hospital. A 77-year-old woman she was taken care of is right now at the Cornell burn unit in critical condition. No word what started that fire. Of course, as more details come in to us, we will pass them on to you. Traffic, transit now. Here's Joe Nolan.
All right, Noam, from the RayCantina.com traffic desk. If you're traveling inbound on the LIE or slow from the Grand Central Parkway in through Queens Boulevard, there was some earlier overnight road work there. That is now out of the way, but still a lot of slow traffic as you travel inbound on the LIE at this point through the middle of Queens. Now, if you're on the Bronx River Parkway on the southbound side, right at the Cross Bronx, again, overnight road work, that continues. Inbound on the Gowanus BQE, we're slow from the Prospect to the Brooklyn Bridge, and then also on the westbound side of the Long Island Expressway out in Nassau County, we got a problem right at the Seaford Oyster Bay. Some police activity that's off on the side of the roadway, but it is still causing some rubbernecking. And then on the Southern State at Linden Boulevard, exit 13, an accident, that one all off on the shoulder. Now over at New Jersey, we're not doing badly. 280, 287, 78, 1922, all those moving along. Same thing on the Parkway and the Turnpike. you don't have any issues there. Route 80, though, of course, still that full closure at exit 34 with the ongoing repair work. There's about 3/4 of a mile of heavy traffic behind that coming into the detour. And already we have delays on routes 10 and 46, so that's going to be an issue for us this morning. New Jersey Transit trains the 410 out of Dover, which is due in Hoboken at 5:53. That train is 25 minutes late. And we have delays on the downtown A and D trains. Alternate side, once again, today is in effect. Get ready to redefine your drive with the new Porsche Macan 4 Electric from Porsche Edison. It's still the sporty SUV you come to expect from Porsche, but with impressive e-performance that makes it a pleasure to drive. Discover exceptional offers at Porsche Edison, a Ray Cattina dealership. I'm Joe Nolan with traffic on Talk Radio 77 WABC.
WABC News Time 540. President Trump's borders are. Tom Homan, he was up in Albany yesterday trying to convince lawmakers to work with him to root out migrants who are here illegally, those who have committed crimes, and sent them back home packing. He also was speaking about Mahmoud Khalil, the pro-Palestinian protester who was arrested by ICE over the weekend. And Borders are, Tom Homan says it's not a free speech issue when it comes to Mahmoud Khalil. He says it's much bigger than that, and that's why they want to send him back to Syria.
I hear freedom of speech, freedom of speech, freedom of speech. Can you stay in a movie theater and yell fire? Can you slander somebody verbally? Free speech has limitations, but when you go to a college campus, you incite protesting and locking down and taking over buildings and damaging property and handing out leaflets for Hamas, who is a terrorist organization.
Now, it hasn't been decided yet whether he will be sent packing, waiting to see what a judge does. But Homan's rhetoric appears to be an escalation against New York's immigration policies, which he's really upset about. One of them being the green light law that grants undocumented migrants driver's licenses. But federal agents can't access that information to look to see who these people are, and he wants to change that. That was the reason he was Albany. He was hoping to meet with the governor. He never did. But Homan says he was praising Mayor Adams he says Mayor Adams has worked with him very well since the White House changed and Trump took over.
He wants to help make New York City safer by removing illegal aliens who shouldn't be here, have committed a crime against U.S. citizen. He understands that the illegal alien crime in New York City has skyrocketed under this administration.
And Homan says that Governor Hochul has tried to punish Mayor Adams for working with the Trump White House.
And the governor runs down there and wants to fire him because he's working with Tom Homan? New York State, you got to change the sanctuary status. If you don't, get out of the way because we're going to do our job.
We're going to go from Albany to Newark, New Jersey. Just a tough night there, really emotional, as the community came together to honor a police officer who was shot and killed in the line of duty last Friday. 26-year-old Newark police officer Joseph Azcona was killed while he was responding to a call that there were people with guns outside some sort of a restaurant. People showed up last night to pay their tributes to the young guy, just 26 years old, had only been on the force for 5 years.
This week is going to be tough. Next week is going to be tough. The week after that, the next week, the next month, the next year. We got a class going in next week. They're going to know his name. Joey is going down in history. Everybody from Newark, Essex County, Union County, Hudson County, New Jersey, every state in this country is going to remember his name.
It was a great turnout, and it must have given comfort to his family. Hundreds of people filling the streets in front of the Christ Assembly Lutheran Church, and just talking about the life that he led, and of course, tragically ended way too soon.
That day, we did see the worst of humankind, and when our brother was taken away from us too soon. He was a real cop, a true cop. Whoever met him, whoever knew him, knew that he had a heart of gold.
So Azcona investigating this illegal firearms he'd been told about. He didn't even get a chance to step out of his car before he was shot and killed, allegedly, by a 14-year-old who had an automatic weapon. And, of course, that was the talk as well, about that 14-year-old and how he was able to get hold of a weapon and where were his parents.
The assailant was so young himself. What is he doing with a gun? How did he get a gun? And where's the family support for that child?
Yeah, and then it's been 20 years, thank God, since the last time a Newark police officer was killed in the line of duty. Let's hope it's another 100 years till this happens again, maybe more.
Hard worker. He has family members on the job. They all cut from the same cloth. These guys come to work every day, put their lives on the line for our residents here in the city of Newark, and we're blessed to have had him here.
Yeah, the teenage suspect is going to have a closed hearing. Now, in New Jersey, a 14-year-old cannot be tried as an adult under any circumstances, so he won't be tried as an adult. Meanwhile, it'll be another sad day tomorrow in Newark, New Jersey. Detective Ascona will be laid to rest on Friday. All right, 5:45. Let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk. Here's Justin Eller.
Thank you, Noel Maladen. Start here with the NBA out in Portland. Mikal Bridges hit a 25-foot three-pointer at the buzzer to give the Knicks a 114-113 overtime win over the Trailblazers. Bridges finished with 33 points, and OG Anunoby had 23 as New York won its second in a row and improved to 2-2 on its 5-game West Coast trip with 1 game remaining. Karl Anthony Towns shot 8 of 12 from the field, including 2 3-pointers late in regulation to finish with 21 points for the Knicks, with Jalen Brunson expected to miss at least 2 weeks with a right ankle sprain. New York's immediate future, it looked bleak when he went down over the weekend, but the win last night helps the team salvage some hope and pull within 4.5 games of the Celtics in the Atlantic Division. Up next for the Knicks, they'll conclude a 5-game West Coast trip at Golden State on Saturday night. And as for the Brooklyn Nets, they return to action tonight in Chicago, getting set for an 8 p.m. tip-off against the Bulls. After a quiet night on the ice locally, the Rangers and the Devils will both be skating tonight at Minnesota. The Rangers will drop an 8 p.m. puck against the Wild after the Devs get underway in Jersey at 7:30 against the visiting Edmonton Oilers. And checking in on the local collegiate hardwood as well, St. John's will take on Butler in the quarterfinals of the Big East tournament today at noon. The Red Storm's record in Big East play is 18-2 on the year. The teams meet for the third time this season. St. John's won 76-70 in the last matchup on February 27th. The winner will meet either Xavier or Marquette in the Big East semifinals come Friday night. That Xavier-Marquette quarterfinals matchup is this afternoon at 2:30. That is your Sports Gnome, and I'm Justin L. on 77 WABC.
WABC News Time 5:49. A New Jersey mother facing charges now in connection to her young daughter's death.
The Essex County Prosecutor's Office says detectives responded to the scene in Newark on Monday morning. That's where they found a 6-year-old girl dead. Mayor Ross Baraka says the case remains under investigation since the details of the child's death remain unclear. The child's mother, identified as Zahira Hall, was charged with endangering the welfare of a child. Baraka says Newark mourns this little angel that was taken way too soon, adding that every child in the city deserves safety, security, and an abundance of love and laughter. I'm Liz Radabali for 77 WABC News.
A New Jersey transit bus operated by a student driver crashed into an office building in Leonia yesterday. It happened, this was Grand Avenue, Fort Lee, about 9 in the morning. A crossing guard, he said he watched this all as the driver seemed to lose control. She was making a turn and then went into the side of these buildings. Now, thankfully, nobody was inside. In fact, the businesses were not open.
He was making a right turn over here, and she didn't straighten the wheel. The wheel was still to the right, and she jumped those 2 curbs over there and went right down in the hole. Where is she going? And I went around the bush to see if they were all right. She was in the back of the bus.
Yeah, thankfully, nobody was hurt. Not clear if she'll keep her job, though, as a New Jersey Transit bus driver. A man carrying a box cutter shot in the chest by NYPD cops in Brooklyn yesterday afternoon. This was in the Flatlands section right near Utica Avenue, middle of the day, like 2 o'clock. 2 detectives were driving through the neighborhood. They saw these 2 men fighting on the street. They broke up the fight, but one of the individuals, the guy with the box cutter, started walking towards these police officers. They told him to drop that box cutter. He refused. They gave him a second warning. He refused again, and that's when they opened fire.
The perpetrator that ends up getting shot is standing on a street corner. As the car passes, it appears he throws an object at the car, causing the operator of that vehicle to stop, and then they engage in a dispute. So they didn't know each other? Did not know each other. This was unprovoked.
Man was taken to Kings County Hospital. He's in critical condition today. Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch pushing for a crackdown on quality of life crimes. She testified before a city council hearing yesterday that the NYPD will soon unveil a quality of life division which would address things like panhandling, public urination, and open drug use in the city.
It makes them feel unsafe, and it gives the impression of chaos and disorder on our streets. To address this, the NYPD is overhauling its approach to quality of life enforcement.
And she says she will use a new system that will track how quality of life complaints are handled to measure complaints and then hold officers accountable for responding to them.
Residents, businesses, and tourists are plagued by issues like out-of-control scooters and e-bikes, aggressive panhandling, unruly street vending, public urination, open-air drug use, and more.
Yeah, it's sort of like the broken windows policy that seemed to work for a while here in the city, though, until it was pushed back by people on the left. 5:52, a Long Island man arraigned yesterday drugs, weapons, dog-fighting charges. 39-year-old Kevin Brown. Police showed up his home following a drug overdose investigation and realized that dogs that he had in cages were probably being used for fighting. They also found 1,000 pills containing fentanyl and some other things. Here's the DA out in Nassau County.
This defendant's stockpile of fentanyl isn't where his alleged crimes ended in this case. As the NCPD and the DEA continued the search of the premises, a dog-fighting operation was uncovered.
DA's office says some of those dogs in dirty wooden crates, some of them chained, appeared to have no access to food or water. In some cases, others had open wounds on them, suggesting they had recently been in fights. The lawyer for the defendant, Kevin Brown, says he didn't do a whole lot wrong here.
I don't believe he was the owner of these dogs, and I think the DA's made assumptions about dog fighting that I don't think is accurate.
While we're out on Long Island, health officials there warning about the fact that a bunch of people may have been exposed to a kid who has measles. Dr. Roy Gulick, he's chief of infectious disease at New York Presbyterian, says the measles, of course, is highly contagious.
And someone with measles who transmits it through the air, the virus can linger in the air for up to 2 hours. So that's what makes this such a contagious disease.
Yeah, so Suffolk County officials announcing that a child that was 5 years old tested positive for the disease, and that people who had came in within this department where this child was being treated may have been exposed. Now, this was before they knew this child had the measles. So now they're worried that he may have spread it to others who are not vaccinated.
Someone with measles is contagious 5 days before they develop the characteristic rash and through 4 days after they've developed the rash.
Yeah, it is one of the most contagious diseases around.
It has never been linked to long-term complications, including autism.
Oh, he's talking here about getting people vaccinated. Of course, lots of people worried about getting their children vaccinated, and he says, no, that's silly.
It has never been linked to long-term complications, including autism. In fact, it's estimated that measles vaccines have saved over 90 million lives since the 1960s.
WABC News Time, 5:55. Yesterday, New Yorkers remembering the life of civil rights activist Hazel Dukes. Lots of famous people showing up at her funeral yesterday, including former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton.
Her career as a black woman, with all that she did, is truly a part of the history of this country that we cannot allow to be erased.
She was the longtime president of New York's chapter of the NAACP. She passed away March 1st. She was 92 years old. Governor Hochul talking about how Hazel was like a mother to her.
She had so much love and compassion. She was always there for me during some challenging times as well. That's what she was known for, Hillary. She didn't give up on her friends. When she embraced you, she was there even when others are attacking.
And Mayor Adams says that Dukes called him the day he was indicted on federal corruption charges to tell him she would stand by his side.
She said, babe, I'm going to stand by you. She was the type of woman that walked in the room when everybody walked out.
5:56, sorry, one with this one. An elementary school principal in New Jersey getting a lot of flack, and probably not rightfully so. He is the principal at Catherine A. Dwyer Elementary School that is in Rockaway Township, New Jersey. So he had a special day at school. It was called Dress Like a Celebrity Day. And he chose to dress like President Donald Trump. And ever since he did that, you have people in the community who say he should be let go from his job as principal, which seems just outrageous. But here they were at the Board of Education meeting this week.
The current immigration policies have greatly affected the families and students that I work with. Students have reacted with fear during unplanned fire drills, scared about who's coming to school.
Yeah, he was wearing a MAGA hat, which some of these parents said was a racist hat. Thankfully, There was other people who showed up this meeting who were right of mind and said, it was dressed like a celebrity day. That's why he dressed like President Trump. Leave him alone.
People support our principal. He's been here a really long time. He's a firefighter, a veteran, and it's really a shame what they're doing to him.
It really is. So far, they've left him alone. Let's
talking about dressing like a celebrity day.
Right. Mm-hmm. Are you dressing like a celebrity today?
Well, today happens to be the first day of Purim, which for Jewish people, which last I checked you are. I mean, barely, but you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is our version of Halloween.
You're challenging my Judaism?
Yeah, you're not. You're a little better than Doug Emhoff, who's the original crappy Jew.
Well, first I would know that today is not Purim, just to show my Jewish
identity.
Last
night was.
No, it's tonight.
Today.
Sundown tonight.
Okay, well, that's today.
How can it be such a big dispute?
It's today, you dummy. Whether it's tonight or later on, it's today.
Well, no, it starts at sundown. Jewish holidays.
That's today, right?
Right.
Yeah.
In fact, I would think you'd understand.
In fact, I'm slated, unlike you, to host a huge Purim party alongside Michael Rappaport and Liz Pipko, who will be live in studio this morning in the city later on tonight. So I will be at a Purim party. Where are you going to be? Watching porn in Jersey City.
That is Purim porn, but yes.
Purim porn.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Come on. A very nasty, come on. Grabbing Queen Esther.
Don't forget Achashverosh.
Oh, King Achashverosh. Who could forget? You're actually a pretty good Jew, you know that?
That's what I hear.
Your father, God rest his soul, is very proud of you.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Especially when he hears I'm watching Purim porn. Yeah. 5:57.
That's why you got the extra hour, folks, right there. That's right, from 4 to 6. He kills everybody in the ratings, including 10-10 wins.
That is true, actually.
You want the best Purim jokes? You know where to go.
Yeah.